Last year, the IMD Competitiveness Yearbook placed Australia as the 13th most competitive nation on earth. That's out of 67 countries. It's Australia's highest rating in 13 years, but it does remain below our ranking between 2002 and 2011. Now, where Australia drags in the criteria are in business efficiency. We rank 22nd. In entrepreneurship, we're 61st. And in workplace productivity, we're 48th out of 67 nations. Where we do best are on environmental agreements, in university education and in life expectancy. Charles Kiefel is the chairman of Principal Funds Management and is a lifelong advocate for greater national competitiveness. He was the federal government's representative on the trustee board for the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils. Now he's the global body's vice chair, and he spoke to Ross Greenwood a little earlier.
Well, there's different types of competitiveness. If you're looking at the corporate tax rates, which you've covered very well, and I applaud you on that, by the way, on your show, the Australian corporate tax rate is 30%, and Singapore 17%, the United States 21%. So it begs the question, why doesn't Australia become more competitive and maybe drop the rate to 15%?
So I'll ask you that. That would seem to me to go back to politicians who don't want to be seen...
I'm not a politician.
No, I understand that, but they don't want to be seen to be giving business...
Well, I'm putting it out there. It's a challenge that we should strive to do better.
Right. So I get that, to strive to be better. And if we were to bring down our corporate tax rate, many people would say, the government won't collect as much tax. Is that real or not, do you think?
No, because it'll attract more investment, which means more tax, more jobs.
OK. Now, you've given advice to a lot of investment managers over the years and others who have raised funds and capital.
Yeah.
They employ that capital.
Yes.
What I hear from the chief executive of, let's go through some of them. BHP, if I go to Orica, if I go to BlueScope, if I go to Brickworks, if I go to James Hardie, if I go to ResMed, they're raising capital in Australia. Sending it straight to America.
Well, it's all about competition by comparison. For example, gas. Look at gas. I mean, Australia's got probably more gas than most countries, which it has. We've got enough gas for 1,000 years in Victoria if they unlock the gas. So that's an area where we can become more productive. So you've got lots of people at the golf course the other day, and somebody said to me, well, why don't we use all the natural resources that we have to the benefit of Australian people? And that's two areas. One is gas and the other one is uranium. We've got uranium. We've got a third of the world's supply of uranium. Why don't we use that to the benefit of Australian people? We could either sell the uranium or we could build a nuclear powerhouse in Australia using value-added, using uranium. So there's gas, there's uranium, and then there's precious earth metals. Why not package up all three and do a deal with President Trump's administration? Because they're looking at doing deals globally, aren't they? That's competitive.
Business cannot operate when they've got a corporate tax rate of 30%.
That's right.
When they've got an industrial relations system that holds them back. When they've got energy prices which are higher than overseas, because you compare like with like around the world. Capital is mobile. It picks itself up and moves somewhere else.
That is why you need benchmarking. So you need ongoing monitoring, setting a benchmark, a base case, and that's what the US Council has done. They've set a benchmark as a yardstick to compare their competitive position. In 1985, when President Reagan set up the US Council, that's what they did. They set a benchmark, and after that, they monitored their improvement.
So that would be a fairly simple and cost-effective thing, even for our government to do.
Correct.
To say, OK, where does Australia sit on a competitiveness basis?
Yes.
And not to have bogus sort of things that we are pretty easily going to win.
Exactly right.
But to challenge the hard issues.
You've got to have a transparent competitiveness index, and you can measure, and already are people who do that. There are a number of indices that you could do. But I think that would be a good idea, Ross. OK,
so Charles, if you were setting up a business right now and you had a growth business that required energy, required people, required some capital to be put into that, is Australia the natural place to put that business?
Not at the moment, because we discussed earlier, our tax rate's too high. If it was 15%, wouldn't you be more attracted, if you're a foreigner, to invest in Australia at a lower tax rate?
Well, 100% you would be. So then there's a second thing about our personal tax rates, which are also up towards 47%.
Well, they're too high as well.
But then if you'd bring them down, what the government would be accused of doing, or the coalition, whomever it might be, would be they'd be rewarding the wealthy.
Yeah.
Where is that actually, is that good or bad politics?
No, it's not good. Ross, I've just come from Greece. Did you know when the democracy of Greece was formed? 510 BC. In 510 BC, the first democracy, you know what the tax rate was back then? I did some research with a guide. It was 33%. Now, what's our tax in Australia? What you've got GST,
that's right,
like 10% plus. You've got a personal tax rate for the high level at 49. You've got stamp duty, payroll tax, land tax, more taxes, other taxes. How many taxes do we want? So in all those years, 2,000 years plus, we have hurt ourselves. What are we doing to ourselves? Why don't we become more competitive and strive as a nation to reduce our taxes? We're very good at sport, so why can't we do it with capital?
Okay, so then you go to the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils. Now, my understanding is that the government used to fund this.
Yes, the coalition did, yes.
The coalition funded this.
Yes.
What happened to that funding?
Well, I did present this to Minister Huzik, the industry minister, and it puzzled me as to why he didn't want to do a call with the president of the US Council, to which we had an alliance. And remember, this is a global leadership group of corporate leaders. It's a very powerful group, corporate leaders and university laboratories. And it's been very successful in the United States. But they decided not to do a Zoom call. They decided not to do a telephone call. Disappointed me. We sent letters, and it puzzled me as to why they didn't do that. And I decided that it was in the best interest of Australia to continue, and I've continued to fund that. But other people have supported the journey, and they're very happy.
So hang on, you're funding the government's, what the government previously was paying for, you're now funding yourself, simply so Australia can stay in this Competitiveness Council.
Well, it's community service, Ross.
I get that. I understand that, Charles. So, but there's a passion there, clearly, that you have.
Yeah, it is, yes.
To try and make Australia more competitive.
But I've seen it firsthand. I've been involved since 2013, and they made me a distinguished fellow in 2016, and I went on the board representing Australia in 2017, and I believe in it. And we got backers like Lockheed Martin and Bank of America, Shell, John Deere. There's 40 university laboratories in the United States, and we got a gathering of 20 leaders from the United States coming to Australia, delegates from the US Council coming to Australia in July, and we'll gather a number of Australian leaders they'll be invited, and hopefully they'll join us in that program.
So one thing about this competitiveness, and talking about where Australia sits in this competitiveness ranking, I'm not sure the ordinary person has been travelling recently across Southeast Asia, but the increase in wealth that people are seeing there, the improvement in the standard of living of people across, shows you that competitiveness is real. And in many ways, many of those countries are really eating our lunch right now.
Well, they're your words, Ross.
Well, I've just said it.
We can do better. I'm very proud of my country and countrymen. We're very well-educated, capable people, very adaptable people, and I think Australia are a very kind race of people, but we are competitive and we are aspirational if we're given the right framework to do it.
So what your sense is that the very good first step would be to benchmark where we sit on a genuine competitiveness scale.
But yes, also join these bodies to share best practice with other corporate leaders. You've got nothing to lose. There's an old saying, fortune favours the brave. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
So, Charles Kiefel, good to have you in the program today.
Thank you,
Many
Ross.
thanks for your time.
Thank you.